We did it.
Wow.
Woohoo!
New day, new show. First guest, Manfred from Elephants and Stars. Great Canadian band, goddammit. I'm Canadian. Sarah's not Canadian, but it's fine.
It's all right. I can appreciate it.
Are you happy with everything that went on in the States today?
Nobody blew anything up, so I'm going to call it a good day.
Yeah, that's a win.
That's a win. Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the inauguration. I was going to, but I didn't.
I was working all day, so I didn't see anything.
Yeah, I kind of just kept my Twitter stream open. I just kind of wanted to see if there was anything of like, oh, suddenly this has happened. I wanted to check in, but yeah, I don't know that I need to sit there and listen to 10 different speeches about hope and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The same recycled speeches from every inauguration.
Yeah, it's where it's, this is a new day. We all have the same challenges. Here we go.
Again.
Yeah.
Let's try it again. See how it goes.
Sorry about that. Here we go again. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the very fact there's no explosions and no large events, we'll chalk that up to a win.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Everything seemed to go pretty smoothly, so that's a success in my book. That's
all you can hope for nowadays, especially with all the bullshit, the pandemic and everything that's going on. For sure. No one got hurt. There you go.
It went better than that nonsense a couple weeks ago. So
Jesus Christ.
There's still a lot of fallout coming from that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see? I saw this thing on, of course, social media where they took all the guys who were getting arrested from the 6th, and they put the montage together, and they used the Goodfellas finding all the bodies. It's actually pretty funny.
Oh my god!
I mean, funny within the sort of boundaries that 5 people did die.
Yeah.
So relatively funny.
That's kind of humorous. Good morning, Nick.
She made it. It's 5:00 in the morning where she's at.
Yeah.
Oh, where's that?
Germany.
She's in Germany.
Oh.
She pulled another all-nighter for us.
That's a
she
hero.
so often does. Yeah, I told her, I said, look, just go to sleep if you can, for the love of God. She's like, I think what was her quote? Fuck that.
Sleep is overrated.
Yeah, sleep is overrated. So there she is. Hello, Nick. Hope you're well.
Nick is our trooper.
Yeah, she's been to most of these, so good for you. That's dedication. But yeah, I mean, you guys, you're in Toronto, right?
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Okay,
close enough.
Close enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys still on like super full lockdown?
We actually just went to so it's been really weird. So the Premier of Ontario, Rob Ford, he's been one of those guys, like he's not been an outright pandemic denier, but he's been very kind of like, business has to happen and this.
Yep.
So our lockdowns have all been very kind of laxish. Like basically any business that wants to call itself an essential business has been allowed to stay open. They locked down restaurants for a little while, and then it wasn't before long where they're like, well, you can sit every other table, just, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of lax. And then the problem is the numbers just kept swelling and swelling and swelling. And I think our hospitals, and I don't want to bore people here with statistics, but I think before the pandemic or just when it hit, they said we have to keep hospitals at 85% capacity or under to handle waves of people. And I think they hit like 105, something like that. And, the hospital down the street from us, like they basically have like a tent triage, like they're not even bringing people into the hospital anymore. So I think it was the last week, a week ago or two, we're in tight lockdown. Like we're in, don't go, like they have commercials on TV saying, look, unless you're getting groceries, gas, alcohol, stay home. And it was weird because we didn't rehearse for a long time, and then they said, okay, you can, as long as you're socially distanced and you're wearing masks, which we did because our space was pretty big. So we did that for a while, and then they came back and said, nope, nothing. So we're just kind of had a lot of hanging around at home, sort of plotting our next move should this thing ever get solved. Which, I mean, when it gets solved, but I think they're being optimistic when they say like, oh yeah, by June it'll be everybody. I think that's hype train.
Not the way it's going now.
You're going to see like into the late fall.
Yeah,
I think so. And even with the vaccine, I still maintain that there's no goddamn guarantee it's going to do anything. Not with the different mutations, not with the different strings.
Yeah. So as I understand it, and I'm not going to purport to be anything remotely a scientist, but I do know a lot of them who are smarter than I am, and I kind of got them to explain what how the vaccine works. So not that I'm an anti-vaxxer, but I was a little concerned because I was like, don't they usually take like 20 years to develop? Like, what's going on? And I was sort of put at ease because basically what they said is, no, it's not. It doesn't work the same way. It's basically these antibodies. As I understand it, and if anyone wants to come in the comments and tell me I'm an idiot, feel free. As I understand it,
I will boot you from the conversation.
You still have the virus, but it's sort of like, and you can still transmit it, but it sort of contains so it doesn't mutate in your body into like the full COVID sickness. So basically what it's doing is to sort of dumb it down to people like me, is it's sort of just putting like a little safety wall around it, sort of saying, okay, well, you have it, but you're not going to get sick from it. That's why they're saying when you have the vaccine, it's still going to be masks, it's still going to be social distancing, all of that, all that kind of stuff. Well, good stuff. So yeah, it's I don't think it's a very typical vaccine, although what I know about vaccines, you could fill a warehouse with what I don't know about them.
I was the same thinking as you. It's like, yeah, but this happened pretty fast, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of people were about it. Like nobody really, and I think that's why there's kind of a hesitancy to just jump into it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm sort of two minds because my one mind is like, well, listen, they're scientists, they know what they're doing, they've done testing to whatever degree that they feel good about it, or the FDA or whomever approves stuff like that. And then my other mind is like, well, they did that with thalidomide too, and we had a whole race of flipper kids for a while there. So
there's a whole thing with that. Yeah,
I do like there's like, I guess what you call them, like memes or TikTok videos or things like that, where people say like, look, if you've eaten bologna, don't worry about what's in the vaccine.
You're good. Yeah.
And I mean, like, alcohol is literally poison. Like, you're literally poisoning yourself every time you drink it. And I drink it daily, so I feel like I'm good.
Yeah. Good to go.
Probably safe. Yeah, it'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
I thought I heard somewhere. Now this is just I saw it on the internet, so that's just what I saw. It was like, if you smoke, you're probably okay, because the cigarettes shit in your lungs makes it not be able to attach to your lungs or something like that.
Yeah, that's what they said, that like people that smoke weed
and cigarettes.
Is that true? You know what? That almost in a weird way makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah, because your lungs are coated with all that stuff, so it can't get in there and do whatever.
I'm going to have to start smoking again, I guess.
I feel like that's almost a textbook definition of irony.
Yeah.
Because
you're fucking killing yourself, but you're saving yourself.
Yeah, everyone misuses that word, and that song certainly didn't help matters. I think that's actually legit irony, that smoking saves your lungs from sickness in this case. Unfortunately, I don't smoke, so I'm just gonna hope that I intake enough alcohol that it just kills.
Yeah.
Because my thinking is, if you rub your hands with alcohol,
you can rub your organs with alcohol.
I'm killing it inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's some good science that supports that theory.
And if nothing else, you can
It's
start with
hand
the research.
hand
right?
sanitizer for the outside germs, alcohol for the inside germs. You're good.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I mean, no one has technically proven that doesn't work.
Mhm.
And I think, again, there's some good science there.
Yeah, there's going to be some case studying done, and I think you
I've
should
been
be patient.
conducting some independent studies for a
I'll
while.
volunteer.
There you go. Sarah will be the control. I won't drink, so I'll be the control, and we'll see. We'll see if there's any correlation. But smoking is funny because for years I suffered from horrible asthma, and then one day I started smoking, and I never had a fucking asthma attack again. I'm not even lying.
Isn't that right?
That's right. I just fucked up. Like I grew up I'm in Saskatchewan, so harvest time, all the grain dust and shit like that, I would be just knocked on my ass for months. And then when I turned like 18 and started smoking when I'd get hammered, never had a fucking problem since. And I'm 36 now. It's weird. Yeah, it's interesting.
Where in Saskatchewan are you?
Regina.
Oh, okay.
Shittsville. Yep, Shittsville.
So that's Saskatoon is north, right? And Regina.
2 hours north. That's right.
Yeah. And where's Kelvington in relation to that?
Kelvington. I believe they're west towards Alberta.
And do I have it right? Are the Weaker Thans from Saskatchewan, or are they from like Manitoba? They used to be. Well, sorry, I'm going to get that wrong. The bass player from Propagandy formed.
Is in Manitoba, so that would be Manitoba, I think.
Okay.
Propagandy's from Winnipeg, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
And where in the States are you?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Oh wow.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of nowhere.
I can't name, other than the fact that I know that there's a town in Oklahoma called Enid.
That's like 3 hours from me.
And the only reason I know that is because it's in every crossword puzzle that you'll ever do. Or letter word from a town in Oklahoma.
Enid. That's funny.
Yeah.
When I was in the one thing I always think of when I think of Oklahoma was when I was I think I was in university. I had an Oklahoma Sooners T-shirt, and I wore it for years, not realizing that they had spelled Oklahoma O-A-K Lahoma on like an official starters merchandise. I still have a picture of me wearing it, and someone said like, "Where did you get that shirt? Like some discount to leap in?" I go,
fucking Jersey City, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably paid like $80,000 for it.
Yeah.
I get Oklahoma wrong. Good job.
Literacy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
DHgate,
That was before
like
culture.
that.
Yeah. That's hilarious. That's where Baker Mayfield played in Oklahoma, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
He did. Had himself a year this year.
I was happy for him. I like Baker Mayfield. I don't give a shit what people say. I think he's a good quarterback.
I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's only going to get better too.
Yeah.
I think that he's, not to get too sidetracked, but I think
there's no rules, bro.
That whole young group of himself and the kid from Baltimore and the kid from Buffalo and the kid from San Diego. Like you're really, and I guess you technically could put Mahomes in that group and Watson.
Yeah.
You're seeing like, because now Brady's leaving, Breeze is leaving, Rodgers isn't going to be around much longer, Manning's gone. You're seeing that next group of like guys who are going to be really good. Because for a while there, after the Rodgers, Brady, Breeze group, it was pretty slim pickings there for a while.
Yeah, there's a huge separation, right? It's like if you had one of those three guys, you're up here, but the rest are just
Yeah, and that's a sport. If you don't have a guy back there, you're not going to win.
And I'm a Saints fan, so Tom Brady can kiss my ass. There you go.
Yeah, I had a whole thing with Brady. Like I didn't personally have it, obviously. Well, sorry, I should say I have it. He's not aware of it.
Yeah.
I used to really like him as a player, just because you appreciate the good play. I mean, I'm a Packers fan myself.
There you go.
But I respect his play. And then when he came out 4 years ago and he had the MAGA hat in his locker And he was like, yeah, I think Donald Trump would be a great president, but I don't want to talk politics and this and that. Like, part of me is like, I know you're friends, and that kind of didn't sit well with me. But it was more when stuff really started turning bad with Trump, and like he was calling the NFL players SOBs, and he was attacking Kaepernick. Like, to me, I know some Brady fans who stuck up for him and said, well, you know, he's just friends with them, and he just said that, and he doesn't really believe all that stuff. My feeling was, well, now's the time to come out and say it. Like, there are misgrading guys like Kaepernick and anybody who's kind of anybody who kneels or locks hands or wants to talk about social justice. And I think that's the time, if you don't support that stuff, come out and say it. And I did.
Yeah, definitely.
The shine came off. Excuse me. The shine came off of him a little bit for me. I just think for me, I think when we look back in 10, 20 years, I think Kaepernick will be looked at very fondly. Like, I think he'll be looked at like a guy who gave up millions of dollars for a cause. Like people talk about Martin Luther King, like he was always beloved. At the time he died, he was in the Gallup polls most hated man in America.
Yeah.
You know, and then the flip side of that is, you know, you have a guy like Michael Jordan versus, say, LeBron James, where LeBron James is very vocal about social justice, and he's very free with his opinion on race in this country and what he thinks. And, you know, whether you agree with him or not, like I respect that he's willing to put his opinions out there, you know. And then Michael Jordan was like, well, I'm not going to do that because Republicans buy shoes too. And I thought, well,
okay, well, but I think, yeah, that's weak shit. I think if you're the only fucking people that average citizens listen to are musicians and athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to Trudeau get up there. I think he does a fine job, and that's whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm not going to listen to a fucking president. I'm not going to listen to a politician. I'll listen to a doctor, a football player, or a musician. If you want to get something through to me, use your platform that you have, because I look up to you, whether I'm an ignorant fuck or not. But it's like, you know, if Colin Kaepernick is saying this, it's like, yeah, fuck that. Whatever he's saying,
definitely you're going to get people. You're going to get people who listen to that voice who wouldn't listen to any voice. And
exactly.
I thought, Michael Jordan was one of the most beloved athletes of his day.
100%.
Top 3 of all time.
Yeah.
And you're telling me, between the money you make from your contract and Wheaties and the Democrats who buy your shoes, like, really, you're not going to voice your potentially unpopular opinions just for like those extra little bit of money? Like, that really rang kind of gross to me.
Yeah.
And it's just, you sort of look at people and be like, well, you know, you do you. But I just was always a little skeeved out by that.
That's fair. And I don't think that Nike would have pulled their goddamn endorsement.
Oh, no.
For that. Not off Michael Jordan. They'd still say, yeah, you know, just like how they stand with Kaepernick.
Yeah,
and Tucker. Well, they fucking should, because, like, come on, man. Like,
but it's funny you should say that you listen to athletes and musicians, because I actually had an argument with a friend of mine about the exact opposite set of that. So we were talking about who's the author who writes the Harry Potter books? J.K. Rowling.
J.K. That's right. What's up, Joel? Thanks for coming.
Hey, it's Joel.
Joel from Funky Moose Records.
And so we were talking about J.K. Rowling, and J.K. Rowling, for whatever reason, has made it her personal mission to, her thing in life is like, trans women aren't women, which is, in my estimation, a really strange, like, if you're going to pick a hot point topic,
why would you pick
that's
that?
a weird hill to die on.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. That is, like, even if you sort of quietly think that, like, even if you go like, yeah, well, you know, what about at the Olympics? What are that? Like, even if in your mind you think there's some gray area there,
just don't say
that's a really weird thing. And she, not only did she say it once, like,
she defends it.
She's dying on that hill. Mm-hmm. And my friend who likes Harry Potter books, I said, well, who gives a shit what, pardon my language, like who cares what
You're fine.
J.K. Rowling says about anything? Like J.K. Rowling writes books about kids who do magic. Like let's stop pretending her opinion's important. And they made the very good point that she's got young, impressionable fans, and they have a high volume of LGBTQ. I guess her audience is made up of a wide swath of that. So I guess I do get it. I'm in sort of a weird spot where like I kind of don't care what celebrities say, even the ones I like, just because most of the celebrities I've liked at some point in my life have just said something so incredibly stupid. Like I grew up a huge Kiss fan. And Ace Frehley came out for Trump, and it's like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do with that information? You know what I mean? Like, I get it. It's Kiss. They're a stupid band, and I shouldn't expect anything more from Kiss than
or less.
But even still, just when I heard it, I was like, really, man? So I think I'm just trying to like less and less. It's weird because I've totally just contradicted myself. On one hand, I'm saying if you have a platform, use it.
But I fuck your platform. But I don't care about your
use your platform, but fuck your opinion.
Yeah. Use your opinion for other people.
Play guitar, asshole. Yeah.
Well, who was it that it was a famous band once upon a time said that it was basically just that. They're like, I don't want to know Pete Townshend's political opinions. I don't remember who it was, but I mean, I think there's room for kind of all of it, because I mean, like a band like The Clash, part of why they were so interesting is because they were sort of so politically charged, and there's other bands like that. Propaganda would be another good one. A lot of that really good early '90s hip hop, from Public Enemy to Tupac Shakur to Eric B. Rakim, like KRS-One, like they were super politically charged, and I like that. That's one of the things I miss about hip hop today is a lot of it seems very sort of staid, and it's not. And this is going to sound like a grouchy old man, but like it feels like it's not really saying anything. Yeah, I miss the anger. Like I miss the outrage and the anger. Like, yeah, Ric Flair Drips, kind of a cool song, and they had some, cool kind of chill stuff. But at the end, like, I want to know, why aren't more of these people outraged? Like, I want like the Fight the Powers, and I want all that kind of good stuff. Well, that was the draw for me.
That was the whole birth of hip hop, was to have a voice to express that anger for everything.
Yeah, and now it's just kind of all about like your rep and your whatever, how much weight you're moving, and it all seems very marketed. And
that to me is a waste of your platform, unless, see, my favorite hip hop group right now is Run the Jewels, because those guys are saying shit every fucking chapter they get. They do not. Killer Mike doesn't pull any fucking punches. LP doesn't pull any fucking punches. Those guys will tell you fucking straight, and they got something to say, and that's what I like.
They're great. Well, their music's great for starters.
Phenomenal.
The production, oftentimes the really political stuff gets a little like they kind of forget that it's supposed to be good too. Like Killer Mike is amazing. Yeah, like I love listening to that guy talk. I loved his voice during the Black Lives Matter rallies when the police were sort of, out there in full force. And like I think they're which is funny because they're pretty successful. You'd think they'd be a model that more artists might follow. You would hope anyway, because I think that they're great. I think they're not my favorite current hip hop artists. I definitely think they're probably the best, which is kind of a weird thing. But like I think there's a lot of bands that are good that I don't necessarily like, and I think I like a lot of bands that are kind of stupid. I mean, look, I admit it as a Kiss fan. Like
there you go.
You can't be a music snob at that point. It's over.
Yeah.
So you have no credit anymore.
So, okay, Joel's asking this question, since we were talking about J.K. Rowling and all that other stuff, about The Matrix being a transgender story. I haven't heard anything about this. I kind of live under a rock.
Theory because the guy who wrote it or produced it or directed it, one of those, came out as transgender.
Okay.
I am about to really, like, not that I have a high Q rating or coolness factor, I'm about to dent it. I've never seen The Matrix, not 1 minute of it. Someone told me the story once, and it didn't make any sense to me. And I was just like, nah, I don't need to see that.
I don't think I've seen all of it. I've seen probably the first half hour, and I'm like, it's just meh. It's meh to me. What's up, Chloe Rain? Thanks for coming out. You're good. You're good people.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if there's any germ of a transgender story in The Matrix.
I wouldn't.
Like I said, I'd have to see it. So it's the sort of equivalent to that of a movie I have seen is I once saw an interview with Francis Ford Coppola, and he said, "Oh, The Godfather is not about the mafia. It's about capitalism." And I was like, no, it's about the mafia. You can disguise it however you want if that makes you feel good, that you don't want to glorify the mob, because, you know, that's exactly what that movie absolutely does. But I think that's kind of a revisionist history way to look at it. You know, I don't know. It's a commentary on capitalism. I thought, well, there's a lot of ways you could have done that without
it being about the mob.
It's like when David Chase used to say, The Sopranos isn't about the mob, it's about his family. And I was like, oh, yeah, the worst episodes are.
The episodes nobody cares about.
Yeah, the ones where, like, DJ or whatever his name is goes on a date. Like, I can go to Dawson's Creek if I want to see that.
Nobody wants to see that. They want to see Tony do his thing. That's it.
Nick says we're bringing the Matrix to the bunker.
Oh, that's probably fair.
I'm actually kind of almost in a bunker. I'm in a sort of basementy room.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a combination clothing storage, gym, and office.
That's a good
exactly
use of
what I've got here too.
Mine is just an office that I stole from my cats because they were eating in here, and I said, "Fuck you."
I think is that the same room that you've always done your cast in? Because the first one I saw was when you were with Joel and Mark, and then you know how when you're on YouTube, you look to the side and there's a rabbit hole of like all that other stuff you can watch, and then next thing you know, like 4 days have passed. I saw one. You were interviewing another guy who had a podcast. I don't remember who he was, but you guys both had done security at bars and shows for bands, and you were telling stories about having done security. Is that am I wrong?
Yeah. God damn it.
Because I was going to say,
and now he has no idea who it was.
Way back when, I used to do security at shows.
Oh, there you go. Hey, fuck yeah. Brotherhood right now. There you go.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there's a whole sort of weird series of events. The first time I saw the band Los the Low, I didn't know anything about them. I got called into work because they were playing this university, and I guess they hadn't sold a lot of tickets, and so they only put like 3 guys on, and then the place ended up walk up was sold out.
Oh yeah.
So I was sort of standing. I was doing front of stage, and I'm standing there, and usually like I'm not someone who should work a lot of security. I should definitely not be a police officer. I don't have the patience for it. I just get angrier and angrier, and I sit there and I just sort of get full of contempt for everyone who's around, which is usually kind of my MO at these.
You're hired, dude. Yeah.
Especially like because of legal reasons back then, people weren't allowed to slam dance, and everybody wanted to slam dance, and you had to go like, "Sir, could you please ask the crowd not to?" And of course the band was like, yeah, go to hell. How about that? And so I was sitting there and I was kind of like grouchy at the front of the stage. And I'm just kind of watching the crowd, looking for fights or what have you. And for a second, I'm listening to the band going like, holy shit, these guys are great. And that was the first time I heard them. I ended up going to see them in concert like 10 more times. Their singer actually recorded and mixed our first
shit.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and here's the weird thing about how that even happened. So I'd met him a few times in Toronto just from being at different events that he was at or that I was at, and we had a couple of common friends. So one of our common friends, my friends Vince and Dee, they used to be in a band from Toronto called Sour Landslide. And they were doing a farewell show in Toronto. Basically, they were going to break up and they wanted to do one last show. And they wanted to invite everybody who had ever played with them or collaborated, whatever. And you would get up and you'd do one of their songs and you do one of your songs, and then you skedaddle on off the stage. And they invited me to be a part of it, which was pretty amazing because I was a big fan of theirs in addition to being friends of theirs. Yeah. And they invited Ron from Los de Lo up to do it as well. And like I said, I knew Ron, but not like really, really well. It's kind of more like we knew each other to see each other around. And it was one of those clubs where the bar is in the stage is in the back. And then there's like a restaurant bar in the front, and there's like that hard divide in the middle. But there was no bar in the back. So if you wanted to drink, you had to come out into the restaurant.
Yeah. Oh.
The back was packed. There's no one in the front, including a bartender, I might add. And I was just about to go on, and I wanted to just get like a couple of drinks to bring up on stage with me. So I'm sitting there, and I look down the bar, and Ron's at the other end of the bar. And so I kind of just nod. I say, "Hey, how's it going?" And he nods back. And then there's like this long, uncomfortable pause because we're both standing there. We know each other, but there's really, and the bartender is nowhere to be found. Like, so we're just standing there. And so in my head, because I get that sort of thing, I'm like, well, you should fill this silence because he wants to talk to you. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, how's it going? And he goes, oh, good. I'm like, oh, big night. And he's like, guess so. And then like there's this long pause, and it's getting sort of on the verge of painful. And I remembered reading an article that he had a home studio built. I read it in one of the papers or something, and I was like, oh, boom, got it. I'm like, oh, hey, I heard you have a studio. And he goes, yeah. And I go,
cool.
Yeah.
You're like, all right.
I'm just like in my mind, I'm like, where is this bartender? Like,
why did I start talking? God damn.
Yeah, and I'm running out of all my A material. So I said, and again, I swear to God, I'm just trying to make conversation at this point. I'm not fishing, nothing like that. I said, so do you like record other people there, or you guys just do like your own, like you do your own records there to save money, whatever? And he goes, I mostly just do my own, but I could do other people. And I go, well, we're thinking of maybe recording some stuff. Maybe we could touch base about it. And he goes, yeah, sure. And then, honestly, I thought, okay, the bartender's here. I have my drink. I can end this nightmare for both of us. And I go and I do my little set, and that's sort of the end of that. And I thought, well, could have been worse. And then I got an email from him like that week saying, hey, were you serious? Do you want to come down and record? And I was looking at my computer. It's like those cartoon eyes are like looking at the email. I'm like, oh my God, yes. So so I went down there, and he's got a pretty nice setup there. And we ended up, I had a bunch of bed tracks. It's a long story why I had them, but we had bed tracks for like 20 songs, like just bass and drums. And we basically just brought them in and we recorded them together one at a time. So like most of these songs, like if you wouldn't know, but like he's either playing the guitar or he's playing the keyboard, he's singing backup. It was like a real fun little collaborative deal. And it was a thrill for me because, I mean, they're literally one of my favorite bands.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just weird how luck and fate and kind of, I happen to know this guy. The bartender happened to not show up. He happened to have a basement studio. They happened to not pre-sale at those shows. If any of those things don't happen, that record probably doesn't exist or exists in some, lesser form.
Lesser form, yeah. That's a good album, man.
Thanks. Well, I mean, we've it's the most fun I've ever had making a record. Like in previous bands, I was in a band that put out a couple records called Soap Opera, and then I was in one called The First Time, who put out a record, and it was just, you know, they were sort of bigger name producers, and those guys, you know, they'll work you. Like music is no joke to those guys. Like we would. I remember we were working with the producer Warren Livesey, who I think he was from England, and now he was in Vancouver, and then he might be in Toronto now. And he's famous for doing his big claim to fame was he did "Beds Are Burning" by a band called Midnight Oil.
Well, should.
And he did what was the other ones he did? I know that he did all the records. He did Matthew Good's records.
Oh wow.
He did he told a great story. He was a really nice guy, like really funny guy. He told this great story about he was interviewed to do Unforgettable Fire by U2. It was one of their big transitional where they became like superstar kind of records. And he tells this great story about going in and U2 say like, okay, well, what are you hearing? And he goes, oh, he's a British guy. I'm not going to do his accent. He goes, oh, you know, here's what you guys need to do. You guys need to change this, and you need to update this and come out with this whole different thing. And U2 go, yeah, we're not going to do that. And he didn't get it. And he was all bummed about it. But but anyway, like he's a really nice guy. But when we were doing pre-production, it's when you're kind of like formally rehearsing the songs. Like they were like 10-hour days of one song.
Holy shit.
Like you'd get there at like 11 a.m., you'd set up, sound check, your sound guy's there, and you would just start playing the song for 8, 9, 10 hours in a row. And he would pick apart and again, that's what good producers do. I mean, they all work differently, but like he'd be like, you know, maybe this middle 8 needs to be here. Maybe play this chord here. Maybe, and just, you know, it really just any fun or energy you had with those songs, that's over. By the time that record came out, I didn't want to play one of those songs. I didn't even want to play them live. I was like, I hate them. Like, I don't want to hear them ever again. This was kind of a different thing. We brought in bed tracks, and we were just kind of very loosey-goosey, and we'd be like, let's do this. Well, what about an organ? How about that? And then we were done.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's two very different ways to get the same thing. Like with Soap Opera, we worked with a producer. Do you guys know who Terry Brown is?
Terry Brown.
His big records were, he did all the early Rush albums. He did like and basically everything from the first one. He didn't do the first one, but everything from there through Moving Pictures and I think Signals. So he did like their big ones. 2012. He did the first Blue Rodeo record. He did. He's done a million things, and I remember like pre-production with him was a little different too. We were all really nervous because, you know, we're just these small time. We're basically like 20-something, early 20s. And he goes, I'm going to come down to your rehearsal room and I'm just going to listen to you guys play and we'll kind of kick some ideas around. And we launched into our first song and we're playing it. And I think we're playing it kind of okay. And I got to back up for a second. So he goes, like, and he just starts waving his hands, and I'm like, "What's the problem?" And he just goes, "Is this how you guys always play?" So, what do you mean? And he goes, "This loud?" He goes, "How can you hear anything?" He goes, "You guys are just a gigantic wall of indiscernible noise." He goes, "The first thing we have to do with you guys is turn everything way down." So it was just kind of funny because even when we loaded into the studio, we recorded at the studio in Quebec, and they have this big, what do you call those doors that are like, they're part of, it's almost like a drawbridge door, like
like an overhead door.
he goes, all right, you guys just load your gear in over there. I'll come around. I'll meet you in there. And they have like it was a really high end studio. They had like a staff and a guy who would come in and like write what your pedal positions were at and stuff like that.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it was insane. It was plus free beer. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So we're in there and we're loading our gear in, and we get it in there and the door closes up and the guy who's engineering the session comes in and he goes, "When are you guys gonna bring your gear in?" And we're like, "Here it is, man." And the guy's like, "This is it?" Because like we all had like one like little amp and like one guitar, and I don't even know if our bass player brought his own bass amp because he was going to go direct or whatever. And they're like, "This is all your gear," and we're like, "Yeah, is that going to be okay?" Like, I'll see if we can borrow some for you guys. So right out of the gate, we felt like complete rank amateur. And then the whole free beer was a problem because when you get people away from home thinking that they're, with the benefit of hindsight, you realize how ridiculous it is. But at the time, you're like, man, we got a big name producer. We're in a big studio, free beer. It's time to go. And I think we were in the second day, we had tracked the first day, and the second day, Terry sat us down and said, "Look, I get that it's all very exciting, but you guys cannot continue to drink this much." And we're like, "Oh, is it noticeable?" And he says, "Yeah, usually like the first hour takes are good, and then you guys are useless from that point on." So it must have been the second or third day that he said that. He said, "Listen, he goes, how about we make a deal? No drinking until after dinner." And which was fine with me because I was usually done by dinner. So it's usually they go back in and do all the touch-ups and stuff. So yeah, we found all kinds of different ways to embarrass ourselves.
That's hilarious. Love that story.
But it's weird when you work with guys like that and they can tell you stories like they tell you stories like I would tell you I went to work today. They're like, "Yeah," and then Morrissey dropped in and we went for coffee, and then Robert Plant drove up and all this weird stuff. Although, you know what? Saying that, we almost have a story like that. When we were recording, we almost have a cool story. When we were doing our last album with Warren, we recorded it in Mississauga, which is just outside of Toronto, in this studio called Metalworks, which is a pretty known studio. I think, the Goo Goo Dolls have recorded there and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so how it's sort of laid out is you have your hardcore studio area, and I think they had 4 of them. And then every studio had its own big lounge area with sort of like couches and TVs. So like if you weren't recording, you could go sit in there. And then they had a big main lounge area that basically everybody shared. I think there was like a little kitchen and a pinball machine or something. And we're in there and we're sitting out in our lounge, but with the door open. And Warren's from England, and we're talking about this one song. And I said, "Oh, it'd be so great to get a female backing vocal on this for this reason or that reason, the other, I don't, whatever." And he goes, "Yeah, maybe, I don't know. We don't really have one." And I swear to God, this voice comes in. We hear it coming up the hall, and it goes, "Do I hear an English accent in there?" Because Warren being from England, and it was Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries.
Holy shit!
They were recording in the studio next door, or 2 doors down or whatever, which we didn't know. And she just walked into our lounge, super friendly, and she's like, "Oh, hey, I thought I heard someone from England. It's good to," and she and Warren are hitting it off, and I'm sort of standing off in the background, kind of like waving. And I'm standing behind Dolores, facing Warren, and they're talking, and I'm kind of going like this. I'm going like,
You're like,
"Can she do it?"
Her.
And Warren's literally going like this. Warren's going like. And so, anyways, he did, And she couldn't have been nicer about it. She's like, yeah, let me hear it. Like, what I think the first thing she said is, well, let me hear it. So we played what we had for her. And she says, yeah, I'd love to. I think that'd be great. The only thing is because of, contracts and stuff, I can't just agree to do it. Have your record company, which our record company at that time was literally one guy, call, Universal Records or whatever, Geffen, and just to get clearance. And I'm driving home that night going like, I can't believe this. Dolores O'Riordan is going to sing on our record. Like, this is the most insane stroke of luck that's ever happened. So the next day, I zip in and I'm in the studio. I tended to get there sort of early, and the producer's there, and I'm like, can you believe Dolores O'Riordan is going to sing on our record? And he goes, well, we'll see. I'm like, what do you mean we'll see? You heard her, and blah blah blah. So anyway, he goes, well, we'll wait and see. So the guy who ran our record label comes in and goes, yeah, that's going to be a no on Dolores O'Riordan. And I was mad at them. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why aren't you guys making this happen? I was being such a baby. Like, for 2 minutes, I was a total baby. I was like, this is unacceptable.
This is bullshit.
And they go, well, we called her management or record. I don't even remember who they called. And yeah, they wanted $50,000.
Oh.
Oh, that's a no.
Yeah.
Well, you want to hear what's even funnier? You want to hear what an idiot jerk I am? I'm like, what? And we're not going to pay that? What are we doing here? Like,
get my briefcase full of money out of the trunk. We're in.
Yeah, like when it's not my money. It's like, yeah, well, if we're not going to try to make the best record possible, what are we even doing here, everyone?
Metalworks, for fuck's sakes, yeah.
Yeah, like, I know that you're paying like $50,000 for this producer and probably another 20 for the studio, but I want
shell out another 50 over here. It'll be fine
for this vanity project, which will have no bearing on the record.
No.
So, I'm assuming by the time we left that label or they left us, they were pretty glad to be rid of me.
that guy's the worst.
Well, it's just we would argue about, our band was always sort of divided into two factions. You had myself and Mike, our bass player, who knew each other forever and have been like, every band I've ever been in since high school, Mike's been the bass player. I've never not been in a band with him. And if you think about this, so we met in college, and all the times you're in, like, if you've been in a band dynamic or a work dynamic, like, I don't know how much experience you guys have in that, but band dynamics are generally set up to failure. You're basically joining a group knowing that you're all going to hate each other's guts at some point in the not too distant future. Yeah. It's like if work and marriage and an art project were somehow jammed together, and that's with narcissists.
Oh.
So, but I will say this: of all the years, like in vans and hotels and rehearsal rooms and recording studios and meetings with people, Mike and I have never even disagreed. Like, first of all, he's really laid back. Like, he's kind of not the opposite of me, but I tend to be more like, I want this, and why isn't this happening? And this is what we should be doing. And Mike more just waits until he hears something he doesn't like and goes, I'm not sure about that. That's about it. So it's good fit there. So it was always us versus people who wanted to do like insane things. Like, I remember we were invited once to play. Oh shit, what was it? It wasn't the Hells Angels. It was like the one of the major bike gangs in Toronto. The Paradise Riders, is that a thing? The Toronto Rock Machine.
Toronto Rock Machine.
One of those guys. One of the guys in one of those gangs saw us at a show and liked us, and goes up to our drummer and says, "Hey man, we're having this thing. It's like we're in the middle of a field, and you basically play for, like, presumably, I don't know if it's the Hells Angels or whomever, and their girlfriends and their, associated, accomplices. And, they were going to they were going to pay pretty well considering it was us and we, didn't really have that much demand. But I remember our drummer at the time was like, yeah, we should totally do it. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? And I go, there's no way we're doing that. And he goes, why not? Like, they like us. I'm like, no. Like I don't know how much you've read about like organized crime or life. A lot of time, those dudes don't like each other. And when they don't like it, like, here's another thing. Let's say you're sitting around backstage, had a couple beers, and suddenly some girl in a jean jacket comes up and starts talking to you. And you
his boyfriend.
Well, that's Big Rick's old lady. And now like, you're going to get shivved when you're not looking. Yeah. So I was like, no, I'm a hard no on the bike thing. Coincidentally, years later, I was reading a book about a biker gang from Toronto called the Banditos. They mention in that book that thing we were supposed to play. Some dude I don't know if he got killed there, but like they worked over some guy because the Banditos and the it was all very Sons of Anarchy. Somebody was patching over and there was some misunderstanding. And I was like, yeah, that would have been worth the $300 we made. We witnessed to Altamont Part 2.
It's the soundtrack to a fucking firefight. There you go.
Yeah, and do you ever have those moments where you're arguing with someone and you're like, how am I even having this argument? How are you not seeing that this is not a good idea?
Every day.
All the time.
Yeah. And it's just we have a lot of
small people
like that. Like I remember once have you guys heard much about pay to play? Like when bands get offered spots for good bands that they gotta pay?
I think that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. So I know a couple of bands who have done it. Like there's a band, I won't say who they are just because it's not my business to tell their business, but they got a pretty nice slot opening the Foo Fighters tour. But they had to pay like $300 a night to be on that tour.
Oh, geez.
Okay. They went on tour. Okay.
Then. So basically, let's say you did 10 cities, you're in for $3,000.
Yeah.
Like, not to mention what you're paying for gas, food, and whatever. But they figured the trade-off was, they're opening for the good publicity. And so I have kind of really weird feelings about the whole pay-to-play thing. Like, I don't know, like just mentally there's something kind of weird about it. Like it feels kind of almost like payola-ish.
Yeah.
Also, it just, I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with it. Like if a band wants to do it, fine. I wouldn't look at them wrong. I'd be like, hey man, if that works for you, go nuts. I'm not going to judge you at all. But it felt a little weird to me. And I remember
I got asked.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it would depend on the band. Like if we got a call saying like, hey, you can do a show for, insert your favorite band there and you got to pay. I might think it over. I think as a policy, I don't like it, but we were offered a pay to play show for, but it was for Quiet Riot. Remember Quiet Riot, the mental health guys? And I thought, I can't even begin to tell you all the reasons I'm not going to do this. One is I'm not paying Quiet Riot to play for them. Just
one. Quiet Riot.
How is Quiet Riot not paying to play at this point?
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, this was years ago, and like I think half of them are dead now, but at the time they were still hanging around. And I just remember thinking, like, Mental Health sold like what, 5 million copies? You don't need my $300. That's number one on principle. No. Number two, I don't think Quiet Riot's audience would particularly care for us if all is being told. I've been misplaced. We did a Canadian Music Week once, and we got put on a bill with all metal acts because our record company, when you fill out the form, they ask you what genre you are, and our record company at the time said we're hard rock. So we got put on a bill with like all these metal bands. Do you want to guess of of the bands who the audience didn't like at all. First of all, the MC said our name wrong.
Uh-huh.
Then when we came out, so you know when you're on a stage, you know how like when you have the lights, you can kind of see like 8 to 10 rows of people, and then it's kind of like a black.
Yeah, just a blur.
Yeah. The 10 rows or so of people I could see. Am I allowed to swear on here?
Yes, by all means.
So
Say whatever you want.
they're yelling, "Fuck you!" They're giving me the middle finger. They called me the F word a number of times.
Jesus Christ.
And the thing is, then for me is like I start to get my back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like at that point you're saying to the microphone, well, fuck, maybe we'll play an hour, maybe we'll play 2. Well, let's see.
Got all sorts of songs, people.
Yeah, like you have no idea how.
Stay here all day.
Yeah, you think you hate us now?
Wait.
Just wait. We'll be like the Replacements and play all country ballads for an hour. And so yeah, I was not going to pay to play with Quiet Riot. That was not in the cards.
Yeah, and I've even now you're in a bigger market out there, but they try to do that here sometimes. I remember there was a promoter that came from Vancouver, and they thought their big thing was, we'll go and ask. I do hip hop, or at the time I was performing hip hop, and they said, oh, do you want to open for this guy? I was like, yeah, fuck, why not? Cool. Okay, well, sure. So just sign this contract that says you're going to buy whatever tickets you don't sell. You have to sell this many, or you can't open. I'm like, but you want me to open, right? Yeah, but we're just going to do this and that. And it's like, okay, but there's like a fucking 80 people that are going to come. They all know each other. So all the tickets are already going to be sold there. The capacity doesn't match up for how many tickets you want people to fucking sell. And I don't pay to play. So no, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's weird because I remember very recently I actually sent Ron from the Low an email. I kind of just wanted to get his opinion on it. He's a really smart guy. He's been around. He's very experienced. And I just said like, hey, with the concept of music being kind of no longer of financial value to artists, like basically Spotify doesn't really pay, and you can get millions of streams and you don't get that money like you used to. And I thought like, I said, in your opinion, because he's a guy who's made a fair bit of dough, not crazy money, but like he's made a living selling his music. And I said, like, do you see that as kind of like the next model? Like, do you think that bands are going to start making that a standard thing as a way to sort of monetize their career? It's like, you've got a bit of a name. Okay, you want to get a bit of a rub off on me. You got to pay for it. Yeah. And he said he didn't think so. He said, that's always going to be a part of it. But he said, why? He said the part of the model that doesn't really fit sort of to your story is, okay, so you have the headliner playing, right? And then you've got the opener who, for some reason, you feel is responsible for the financial stability of that show.
Thank you. That's what I'm
even
saying.
though they're working. Why isn't the ticket taker being forced to sell tickets, or why aren't the bouncers forced to sell tickets to cover their costs, or the coat check person, or the waitress, or the bartender?
Because it makes about as much sense if the fucking band's position on that bill depends on how many fucking tickets they sell, because
and it should be that way for everybody.
That's right. So because the headliner, you're worried that the headliner you're bringing to play isn't going to sell shit. Right. So how is that our fucking problem?
Yeah, like
you book the show.
Like in my mind, there's two roles here. You're the performer.
Yeah.
You perform.
Yeah.
They're the promoter.
You promote.
They promote. How am I now doing both jobs?
Exactly.
I feel that there's like and that being said, I don't think we've come close to seeing the last of it, but I think it's going to become one of those. I think it's going to become one of those hills to sort of use your expression from earlier. I think people are going to die on that hill. They'll be like,
I will put my fucking tombstone on that hill.
Yeah,
right now, because that is fucking garbage.
The flag is going up.
That's right. like fucking the Kansas City Chiefs at the fucking Arrowhead, just fucking, fucking man. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just bullshit. Like if you want people to keep coming here, then start treating the local scene better because there's a lot of fucking talent. A lot of fucking, and I get it. Hip hop shows, and this time at least they have like fucking 30 openers anyways, so big fucking deal. But you know what I mean? You get up there, now you have 10 minutes, and then you break off the fucking stage. Well, why the fuck am I even going to bother? I'm not going to pay $900 fucking dollars for not even a middle of the pack set. If I have to pay to play, I want a fucking hour-long set. That would be worth it, maybe.
Yeah, and the sort of the flip side of that is, well, here's another reason people aren't coming. And let's throw COVID out the window for a second.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons shows in Toronto struggle, and there's a lot of people have been pushing this for a while, but clubs steadfastly refuse. If it's a Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, maybe Thursday night,
they won't book them.
Why is the first band not going on at 7 o'clock? Someone gets off work, they grab something to eat, they come to the show. Listen, people got to work in the morning. They don't want to hang out at a club till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Because here's what's happened, and this is the part that's so painfully obvious that I don't understand what happened. So let's say I'm going to go see Change of Heart, and they're going to open for Blue Rodeo at the Horseshoe downtown. Well, I know Blue Rodeo is not going on until after midnight, which means Change of Heart's probably not going on until around 11.
Yeah.
I got off work at 6. If I don't want to live in the city for the next 5 hours, I have to either go home or come back or go spend dinner, and then I got to kill time. And in their mind is, well, you're just going to come early and drink at their bar. Nobody does that.
Nobody can do that.
The place is empty. It starts to fill up when the first band goes on, and then everybody leaves at the end. Move it up so I can go from dinner right to the show, and then what'll happen is when the headliners are done, people will probably the people wwho don't have to be up.
We'll have time to hang
out. Yeah.
I know personally, and again, I'm a little bit older, but I mean, I was even kind of a grouch about this when I was, in my 20s, because, in your 20s, you still have oftentimes a job or class in the morning. I don't want to be hanging around Toronto till 2 a.m. and then driving back, back west for an hour on top of that, just because you can't get it through your head. The shows need to start earlier. The headliner should be on at 9, off at 10, 10:30, whoever it is. And then boom, I'm home. I'm telling you, they would get so many more.
Oh yeah.
And the other side of that is, and I get it to a point, but like when local headliners, and I'm talking local, like bands from Toronto playing in Toronto or playing in Hamilton, who aren't known, let's say, you're a typical indie band where the crowd is going to be mostly people friends of yours. Why are you charging them $10? What, they're coming to do you a favor and you're going to gouge them for an extra 10 at the door? I mean, I get it if you're a touring band and you need that money for a hotel or for food or whatever, but our rule back when we had the soap opera had a little bit of a draw for a little while, and we would always be like, if we're doing a show and we're the headliners, there's no cover. Just come, drink, spend all your money at the bar, and the bar will want us back. And we would play to, I'd rather play to 300 people for free than make $10 each off 40 people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the naive side of me business wise, but
I'm the same way as you. I always had way more fun not making fucking money to a full fucking show than I did, 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, we had a couple shows where we got paid pretty well by the bar, which is really rare, where they'd give you.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I remember we played a bar up in. It was actually the one that the biker guy saw us at. I think they gave us $500.
Sure,
which
nice.
At that time, in the 90s, that might have well
That's
been
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, they charged a huge cover, and nobody came. So they took a bath on that 500 that night.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, our CD release party was at a place called Ted's Wrecking Yard. I think it held about 400 people, and there was a lineup down the street because it was free.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because we're so great, but you give people a free show. We had a couple of pretty nice bands. We had Andy Ford's band at the time open up for us. And it was great. And we made no money, but it was one of the best shows we ever did or had, or like fun wise.
Yeah. I think because the most fundamental thing is that a lot of people, when they start making music, they just do it because they fucking love making music.
Yeah.
You would rather give up the money to be able to keep playing music. Like I always say, it's like I would rather be able to play and play for free than make money and not be able to play music.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because I totally agree with that. And that's why, like, remember when downloading first became like a thing? And they said, well, look, if you steal music, no one's going to make music anymore. And I thought,
fuck you.
99% of bands don't make any money. They just want to make music.
And what do you have to say for yourself?
The bands that got hurt the most by that weren't the big bands like Metallica and Prince. Like, they were going to make money no matter what. Their tours, they would still have fans buy records. And bands like mine weren't going to be effective because we weren't making money anyway. Middle tier bands that kind of like top tier indie sort of C-list kind of, I want to say the Goo Goo Dolls, but they ended up selling like 1 million records. But like in their day, like before they broke, there was that tier of like Soul Asylum and the Goo Goo Dolls, and there were like, those were the bands that would get hit because they need those sales because they don't have like the huge
mid-market
tours. Of course, I think the Goo Goo Dolls basically light cigars with $1,000 bills now, but they slug it out in clubs for a good long while.
There's a funny story, but was it one of your guys's? She has a great podcast, Easy Out Podcast, the Sunday sermon you do, and wasn't it one of your buddies that has a Goo Goo Dolls tattoo?
No, one of our
line trio, but it was a Goo Goo Dolls lyrics or something.
Yeah, we were talking about band tattoos, and it's not one of the guys that does the show, but a buddy of his got the lyrics "Bleed Just to Know You're Alive" tattooed on him, thinking it was Alkaline Trio. And we're all like, that's
not just the Goo Goo Dolls song, but it's that horrible Goo Goo Dolls song.
Yes, it's the worst.
Iris. It's Iris.
It's the Goo Goo Dolls song that everybody knows.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody hates.
You know what, though? Like, if you take it out of context, you could see where someone might have thought that was an Alkaline Trio lyric. But it's funny that, first of all, I don't think I'd ever get a band tattoo because my tastes have like, if I did that, like, I'd have like a giant Gene Simmons tattoo. Ridiculous now. But I remember, speaking of the Goo Goo Dolls, like, I remember whatever they've become now, there was a period in their career that I really liked them. That sort of just before Name took off. Remember when Name?
Yeah.
So the 3 albums that kind of preceded that were all really good, kind of like rock records. And then, and I saw them a bunch of times, and, listen, now they're Name and Iris and all that other stuff that they do. But, they literally were slugging out in clubs to like not big money for, I would say, over a decade before Name broke. Yeah. So if they want to go and write ballads and make a ton of money, fine. God bless you. You earned it. Do whatever it is you want to do. I don't care.
I think the same way about Nickelback, honestly. Like, I'm not a Nickelback guy, but you can't fucking sniff at the fucking money they make.
No, that's
fucking rich.
I think I said this on Joel and Mark's podcast as well. I don't, to this day, understand why people hate Nickelback so much. Like, I don't know what it is about them. I mean, there's a lot of rich bands. Like, why doesn't Bon Jovi get it? Why doesn't Springsteen get it? Why doesn't Metallica? Well, Metallica gets a little bit.
Metallica sucks too. Yeah.
I think it's that kind of like, I think a lot of it is like lyrical content. like it's just party music, and I think people just want to shit on it because it's an easy target. Like if you were to like pop up some random Nickelback lyrics right now and read it, it's like the douchebaggiest stuff that you have ever, like, just reading it out of context, you're like, who is this loser? But then it's like this really catchy, fun song that all these people seem to love, and everybody loves to hate it at the same time.
But they really became the poster children band for being hated.
Yeah.
Like it almost became a thing, like you couldn't say you liked them even if you did.
Yeah, you get your ass kicked, or you thought you might get your ass kicked.
Or you have to do what you and I both have done in this interview, where you defend them, but you still have to have that disclaimer that, look, I don't like them.
I think they're the worst men on the planet. But
yeah. They're
work
I don't know if they crack my top 10 worst bands on the planet. And I'm a little reluctant to share my most hated bands on the planet, because every time I do that, people get really mad at me.
I'll tell you mine right now. Everyone watching?
I'll like
fucking number one band.
Like I
already know.
You say it and you hear, and then on Twitter, people like, I remember I said, I'll give you one. So I made a joke about Queen and how I don't like Queen.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't understand Queen. To me, they're very talented, but they sound like Broadway show tunes, and I don't really quite get why metalheads dig them. And anyway, this one guy tweets at me. Like a few people like joke with me, like Ian Blurton, the guy who produced what will be our next record. He just tweeted blocked and reported. This one guy was like, when people write in all caps at you and they don't punctuate, so you have to sort of like read it a couple times. He's like, they're great, you're not even nothing, let alone on a worst of band. And it's like, it was completely incoherent, but basically the crux of it was, my band sucks, so I can't say another band sucks. And I should F off. And he had several suggestions of how I may want to do that. And then he literally blocked me. Like, are you kidding?
That's
like,
the worst.
Like, people make fun of stuff I like all the time.
Yeah, I go, fuck you. It's fun.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you, Joel, I know you're a fan of this band, and I just want to say right now, in front of all of you, that Volbeat can kiss my fucking ass. Okay?
Who are they?
Volbeat.
I don't even know them.
See? Thank God. Worst fucking band.
What kind of stuff are they?
Just imagine someone singing underwater.
It's like a
there you go.
If Elvis did
don't bring Elvis into this.
That's the style, the singing, the vocal style.
It's not good. You have to look up anything after this Volbeat. Anything you type is going to be utter garbage, and just
I'm writing it down.
I can't. VOL beat.
Warriors Call used to get played at my gym like every day, and it was cool. Like the little intro to it, and then as soon as it would start singing, I was like, "Oh no, are we gonna do this?"
That's me when I listen to the Smiths. Like when a Smiths song comes on and it's like the music and the guitar, I'm like, "Oh my god, who is this? I love this." And then that voice comes on, and I'm like, "Oh, I know who it is." Click.
Yeah.
But speaking of them. I'm jumping around here, but so we had slid into each other's DMs on Twitter earlier, and we were talking about Against Me, and right. I wanted to ask, have you guys read Laura Jane Grace's book, Tranny?
I have not read it.
Anyway, it's a fantastic book. It's so like even if you're not a fan, you could never have listened to her music. It's so open and honest, like of everything she's gone through her whole life. I couldn't put it down. But there's a great Alkaline Trio story in there when you said the thing about the lyrics. So they toured with Alkaline Trio at one point, and I guess Alkaline Trio obviously are a trio, but they had a guitar player who toured with them, but they wouldn't let him on the stage. He had to play hidden off stage.
Because it's not a 4-piece, it's a trio.
Because they wanted to be like, we all wear red and there's 3 of us and the black ties and the whole thing. And so I guess at the time, Laura Jane Grace was seeing one of the merch girl or something like that for Alkaline Trio, and they didn't like it. And they were sort of like a lot of tension. And so Laura Jane Grace at the time went on stage and said, "Oh, hey, Alkaline Trio fans, just to let you know, when they are playing later, there's only going to be 3 of them up here, but they keep a guitar player hidden off stage. It doesn't sound very punk rock to me, but whatever." And like said it to the crowd. And when we got off stage, this was before they had transitioned. Matt Skiba and like a bunch of like roadies and crew guys said like they were gonna like kick the shit out of her, and then like their manager interceded, and it became like a whole thing. And the book is filled with stories like that. Like they go on tour with Blink-182 and they're given a memo that they're not allowed to talk to them.
Oh my god!
Can you believe that? Can you believe being Blink-182 of all bands and saying, "Listen, don't talk to us."
They made my top 3 of bands I don't give a fuck about.
Yeah, they'd be up there for me.
I've always heard stories about bands like that. I sort of heard a story that Weezer was kind of like that. But that guy's super weird anyway, so that would make sense.
No problem. Don't want to talk to anyways, bud. It's all good.
Yeah, you know what? If I never talk to River Cuomo,
it's fine. No sweat.
It'll be okay.
But it's just that's a weird thing to think that you would get that famous, that you would start, forbidding people from talking to you.
That's right.
Or making eye contact.
Yeah, you can't look at me.
You cannot gaze your eyes upon me.
Well, I heard a story. I've talked to Max Cavalera a couple times from Sepultura and Soulfly, and he's saying when he goes on tour with bands, it's just a big family fucking like commune, like a traveling fucking carnival. He'll bring dudes on stage from other bands to play songs with them. They just have fun. And part of it's like, but you're at the top of your game, like you're a fucking celebrity, and there's no bullshit with that.
That's kind of how it should be. Like, you're making music. You're not splitting the atom here. You know what I mean? Like it's not. This really isn't life or death. Like your little pop punk is no more important than their little pop punk or this guy's little pop punk. It's it just seems ludicrous to me. I guess I maybe because I've never achieved that level of success, but. The only time I don't like when people come and talk to me is when people come talk to me. I'm sure I'm not coming off this way, but in person, I tend to be very shy and kind of. I'm not good with talking to strangers in person.
I can totally see it.
And they want to talk about your set or whatever, and especially if they're being complimentary, that feels kind of weird. You're like, "Thank you," but. I get a little uncomfortable. And then sometimes you get like the gear dudes who want to come and talk about gear. And,
sweet pedal, bro. Oh, shit. No.
Well, God bless them. I've been playing guitar since I was 14, 13 years old. I don't know the first thing about them. I don't know anything about my gear. I don't know anything about what kind of pickups I have. I don't know. Like I had a guy, we played a show once. And that guy came up to me and goes, "Do you know what kind of tubes are in your amp?" I said, "How on earth would I know that? I know nothing. I don't even know what kind of amp it is. I know the brand. I know it's a Fender."
Yeah, it's a Fender.
But he's like, "Oh, because, you should try putting in such and such tubes." And like, again, you don't want to be rude and say like, "Look, I'm not doing any of that. I don't care."
No, I'm not going to do that.
I try to ask like a courtesy question, like, "Oh, and where would I get those if I ever wanted them?" But it's weird like that. But I would never say like, "Oh, don't talk to me." I feel like putting out a warning saying, "Feel free to talk to me, but you're not going to enjoy it very much."
Talk to me if you want to, but just No, don't talk to me. Thank you.
It's like when Walking Dead was popular and people would say like, "Oh man, it would be so cool living in that sort of thing." And I always said like, talking to me is kind of like living in that zombie world. Like you're imagining it being a lot better than what it's actually.
Really not that good.
It ends badly for everybody.
That's
like we were.
That's like, nice to meet you. Give it time.
Yeah.
Give it time.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah.
It's early on that. But when we just finished recording our follow-up record,
Yes.
which we're kind of finalizing dates. We're kind of hoping to have that soon, a date to come out. And we got to record with Ian Blurton, who you may or may not know. He was the front man for Change of Heart for years and the producer, and he produced the Weaker Thans records, and he's done a bunch of cool stuff. And anyway, when I was in college, I worshiped Change of Heart. I saw them a billion times. I always wanted to work with them, and we finally got the chance recently, and we sort of jumped at it. And I think that he probably has a similar impression of me that you guys probably do right now, because I get around him and I get all like chatty Cathy, and I want to ask him, what was it like when you toured with so-and-so? And what was it like when you made this record? And the thing is, he's very reserved and kind of stoic and kind of like doesn't talk more than he has to. But when he does, like he's got just amazing stories. He's done everything. He's played with everyone. And any story of any band you can name, he's like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, but not in like a braggadocious way. Just kind of like, oh yeah, we toured with them, and I met him at CBGB's and all this stuff. And I sort of start to feed off of that enthusiasm, and I'm like, oh my God, what about this? And what about this? And we'll be doing takes, and like, I can just see his patience like bleeding out of his body. He's tired of me asking him a million questions that he doesn't care about. And I was doing one take. I was doing guitar takes, so I was actually in the same room with him. I was doing it in the control room, and I was blathering on about something or another. And he just goes like this. He goes, "Can we just do the takes, please?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry."
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh yeah, new album. Me and Sarah looking if we had a sneak peek, heard a couple songs on it. Man, sounds great.
Thanks.
Love
yeah.
it.
So yeah,
Love
we were. I did get to send you guys a few previews. We're happy with it. I think a lot of the credit goes to Ian. I think he had a really good ear for what we were trying to do. Pre-production with him was really painless, which is something like, so there was no 8-hour-long sessions. Like basically we sent him some demos that we had, and we met up with him in our rehearsal space, and he had a bunch of notes, and he just said, what if we tried this? And we would try it. And he goes, what do you guys think? And we were like, yeah, that sounds good. He goes, all right, well, let's do that. Like, it was just really laid back, but he came really prepared. He's got a great ear for song craft. And what I mean by that is, like, I tend to sort of want to meander and have like extra parts. And he was very serious when he said, like, listen, you're just not that kind of band. Like, you guys need to be short. You need to be quick. You need to be like bang, chorus, bang, chorus. Like, let's cut out all the junk. Let's just, leave the quote unquote good stuff. And, he did change stuff a fair bit. I mean, with our blessing, like he always said, listen, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I always knew that his records sounded technically good, which was one of the reasons I wanted to work with him, like production wise. But I don't think I really fully appreciated his ear for like pop music, because that's not what his band played, and that's not what most of the bands he produces do. Like, if you, again, I don't know how much time you spent with the stuff I sent over, but like a lot of the little hooks and the thing, like a lot of my favorite moments of the record where you hear like a backing vocal do a certain thing or a guitar line do a certain thing, those were all his ideas. Like even the one song, which I don't think I'm supposed to say the names of them, but is the opening one, which has this kind of guitar riff that opens it up, and that was Ian, and he told me what to play just by pointing at me. Like he said, try this, and he just pointed at my guitar and he goes, go there, 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 there. And I sort of played it and I kind of found the notes. I'm like this. He goes, yeah. And he goes, play that right now. And that's how that guitar line came about. Like he basically just was like, he was almost like Rain Man. He just like there, 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 there. And like that's one of my favorite parts of the record. There's like a backing vocal thing that he suggested this one thing at the end of this one song. There's this line that repeats over and over again, and that was his idea. He said, could you just, when we get to the end of the song, just sing this line over and over? And it's on the second track. And the line is, I don't know a thing about it. And he goes, just sing that over and over and again. And when he first suggested, I go, nah, you know what? You know what might sound better? And as I'm saying my suggestion back to him, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just do the thing he said, idiot. You don't know more than him. So I literally I said my stupid suggestion. He goes, yeah, that's fine. Can we just try mine first? And so we did his, and obviously that's the one we kept, and that's the one we liked. And then there's another song on there, which is probably the fourth song in the order that we sent. It was one of the ones that you mentioned that you liked. It's the kind of slower, dirgier one. Yeah. So that song originally was double time. It was like a Toad the Wet Sprocket song. Like, I don't know if you remember them. It had this real kind of jangle. It was all full time, and I had this really sort of busy guitar line I was playing in it. And he said, what do you guys think of this idea? And he brought in a drum machine, and it was playing that halftime beat. And I go, well, it's different.
I guess you're just full of great ideas, aren't you?
Yeah. And he goes, take some of the notes out. He goes, just make it like 3, like just hit the same 3 over and over and over again. And we did that. And we were playing, and I thought, all right, well, we'll trust them. And the chorus originally used to be this really bright, fast Teenage Fan Club kind of sounding solo, where it's this kind of dirgy, kind of plodding. So the whole song changed, which is kind of neat because it sort of doesn't sound like anything else that we have done. So, and again, full credit to just working with the right producer who just all the good stuff on the record was from him, I would say. I mean, we'll take a little bit of credit, but most of what really stood out was him.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Rob. We'll let you know. When do the rest of us get blessed with this? He says.
So, that's still the secret.
Yeah, it's the secret, but we have these talks, and I'm one of those people, like, I just want to do everything now. Like, I'm like, we're done. Let's put it out, and then we'll worry about promoting it once it's out. And then I have a call with our manager, and we have a very different conversation where they say, no, you can't do that. You have to do X, Y, and Z. And even coming on tonight, they're like, well, don't play any of it. And I was like, well, I don't think they were planning on playing any of it. And they said, well, just because, you don't want to, I don't remember the exact word, but it was something like, we're not ready to sort of make an announcement yet. So the announcement is that I think we have a date. We were in a meeting today where I said, I think this should be the day. I didn't get any pushback yet. And I said, so can I say the date? And they said, no, not official yet. So all I can tell you is I would say, what are we in now? Winter? When does spring start?
February starts in 13 months, actually.
Yeah, so I would say in the early spring, everything's done. It's mastered. The artwork's all done. Everything's done. It's just needs to be, and this is where people kind of lose me. It needs to be set up for the release. So I guess that means getting it into the distributors and having some kind of promotional plan.
Which only takes a day. Yeah, but
yeah. Like I don't know. I'm gonna guess March-ish to April-ish would be my hope. Only because we sort of had a band meeting on when was it? On the weekend maybe? I don't remember. And we were saying like we already have plans to do 2 more recordings this year if we can. Nice. We're hoping to do another EP with Ian, and we're hoping to do another one with Ron.
Nice.
And if we're going to do all that, we got to get this one kind of.
You got to get this one.
Yeah.
Because I still don't think there's going to be shows until late fall at the earliest, and I think that's optimistic.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
So it's either put out a bunch of stuff or sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to actually letting Ron produce, because this on this guy here, he didn't really get a chance to produce because I had brought him finished bed tracks, like the structures were done, and he just kind of helped me record it, and then he did a really nice job mixing it. And he had some really nice ideas in there too. But I would love for a guy with his ear and his talent to just say, oh, what about this? What about that? Like kind of from the ground up. So that's what we're hoping for, but best laid plans of mice and men, right?
Yeah, no doubt. But I will tell you guys in the chat right now, I've heard some of it, and it's fucking awesome. It's damn good. It'll be worth the wait whenever it is able to come out. You will be happy.
I appreciate that. I thought our conversation was funny when you said, I won't say who you compared us to, but you said, don't take this the wrong way, but it kind of reminds me of so-and-so. And I was like, well, they're literally one of my favorite bands. So, and speaking of that, I remember when we were doing the beds that I brought to Ron, we were recording with a guy, and I was like, we'd play a song and I'd be like, oh my God, this song sounds so much like Superdrag, who are this band from the 90s from Nashville, who I loved. And I said, oh, this band reminds me so much of Teenage Fan Club, or, oh, this song reminds me so much of Lowest of the Low. And the guy recording it said, listen, you got to stop worrying about this. You just named like 5 bands I've never heard of. As long as you keep ripping off bands nobody's heard of, you'll be fine.
That's just sage advice, I guess, guys.
That's my new formula. I just find obscure bands and rip them off.
Oh, these guys are so good. How many followers on Twitter? 7.
7.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. You're our guys.
Yeah,
it's right. Sometimes though it is funny when you hear someone else's opinion of it, like, because I would have never thought that as awesome as I think that band is. Like we had a call from an agency in LA who wanted to do some promo work for us. And, you get calls like that all the time. You don't know who they are, how legit they are, or whatever. They're probably just cold calling every band on Spotify. And
every one of them.
He goes, I like the songs. And so me being me was like, okay, which ones did you like? What'd you like about them? And he goes, and then to be honest, this guy actually had listened and he named a couple and he said, this one reminded me of The Replacements, which is, clear because I definitely have ripped off the Goo Goo Dolls, who are a direct rip off of The Replacements, but I'm just ripping off One Remove. He said, have you guys been following the beach slang story that broke last week?
No.
So there's another band. They might I can't remember where they're from. Maybe Minnesota or something like that, called Beach Slang, and they're like really kind of replacement-y. Joel's going. they remind. There was a band in the early '80s called the Plimsouls who they kind of remind me of. And anyway, I really liked them. And he said, "Oh, and you guys remind me of beach slang." And I said, "Oh, that's amazing. That's because I love, you know."
Yeah.
I'm going to hit a past tense on that. I loved them because a story broke last week that the singer of Beach Slang had been emotionally abusing their female manager for like a decade, to the point where she like had a nervous breakdown and was suicidal. And then all these other women started kind of coming out of the woodworks who had relationships with him, and he was emotionally abusive and this and that. And I'm like, I literally just spent $20 on a Beach Slang t-shirt, and now I cannot wear this thing.
Yeah.
So
I got to burn it like a football jersey.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I'm not one of those guys who can really separate the art from the artist. I know some people can. They're like, I don't care, but it's like I'm not going to walk around wearing a t-shirt of a guy who I know abuses women. Like I just can't. I can't look.
Can't feel good about that.
This guy treated women the right way. Right?
Yeah, Lemmy was the shit. What did he do? He just like hurt a whiskey bottle every now and then. You know what I mean?
He was actually, a very nice guy. All the female artists he worked with spoke very highly of him, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
But I can't. It's like Ryan Adams. Not that I was ever a really big Ryan Adams fan, but I don't know, knowing that this guy is like grooming young girls for these weird abusive relationships, I'm not just going to sit there and listen to Whiskey Town and pretend that never happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's like with Lost Prophets. I mean, you got to throw that whole band away.
Yeah.
Like that catalog is just gone.
He was wasn't he a pedophile?
Yeah. Bad. Like
allegedly.
I believe it. Fuck him.
Convicted.
Convicted.
Yeah, he was allegedly a well-known and documented pedophile, and then there was the other band was As I Lay Dying. The guy had taken out a contract on his wife.
Yeah, that was one band I used to really like too, and it's like, bro, it's too bad. Fuck you.
Yeah, and I mean, just like, is it that hard to not be a murderer pedophile? Like, it's really, we've all got our vices, but I mean,
nothing like
I feel like it's not that hard to not be a complete and total creep. Like, and look, we all have our bad days. There's people who get mad at me on some days and whatever, but if we could maybe like just tone down the emotional abuse,
and the pedophilia,
physical abuse, pedophilia,
kids alone.
If people could maybe not throw the N-word around, that'd be pretty cool. Because there was a band that I liked again, and I heard one of the members use that word around me, and I said I was kind of there, and I said, "Hey, man, like, I don't know that it's that cool that you should use that word." Like, I didn't want to make a big get in his face moment about it, but I was like, maybe that you should really reconsider that word, because his whole deal was, no, man, like, I don't mean it like that. I'm like, I don't.
How do you mean it? How can you?
I don't really think you get to define how you mean that word.
Yeah, you don't get to pick.
Why don't we just shake hands and agree that you don't say it? And like, it was this really weird argument, or it wasn't really an argument, but discussion that sort of ensued where people were like, well, my favorite is always like, they get to say it. Why don't we get to say it? And my answer is like, let me ask you this. Why do you want to say it?
Yeah.
What is it like? And people always give you the, he was drunk, or he was this, or he was, listen, man, you want to tell stories about people getting drunk? I've been as drunk as anyone wants to get.
That word.
And that word doesn't come into my, it just doesn't. It's just not a word. I'll say stupid things for sure, but I mean, that word's already in there. The alcohol's just unlocking the door,
Jesus. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to be a creep. It's not that hard to not rape someone. You know what I mean? My record is spotless in that regard, and it was really easy.
Yeah, it wasn't hard at all.
Easy.
Jesus Christ. I hate that too. I hated all that shit where they'd make all that legislation and say, well, she pretty much, it's like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, it's so stupid. And then like we've become so two-sided that people have lost, like when you say things like, I'm pro social justice, and they think like, how is that a controversial statement on any level? Like, I want people to be treated fairly, and they're like, you lib? Like, really?
Yeah. Pussy. What?
Yeah,
snowflake. Yeah.
That sounds like, to me, that just sounds like a perfectly reasonable request.
Didn't think it was that big a deal. How controversial do you think everybody should be treated the same?
Yeah, it's nutty, and so
how dare you?
It just gets really weird and really creepy really quickly, especially when it's someone that you kind of didn't see it coming from. Like when that guy said that word, I was like, whoa. Like, and it wasn't even one of those ones too where like he did like the look around. Like that was a word that
he said it a few times.
Using that was not a slip.
Yeah.
And it wasn't particularly vitriolic, but it's still like that word. And it's just like, guy, no.
Yeah.
I don't do well with that. Well, I'll tell you what, Manfred, how about this? We've kept you long enough. It's got to be 7:00 in the morning in Toronto by now.
Yeah, it's getting late on a work night. See, this is exactly what our band would be getting off stage normally.
Yeah, see, there you go. Yeah. Why don't we get you back once you release the album?
Oh, I would love that. And
we'll have you back anytime.
You know who would really love that is our manager.
Oh, yeah.
Timing of this was all off.
Yeah. Oh, we'll do it again. I'll talk to you anytime you want. You're a good guy for sure.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I'd love it. I'd love kind of coming on into this little universe that you guys have. It's a lot of fun.
Bunker.
Yeah.
The bunker.
Yeah.
And we'll sort it out.
Thanks a lot for having me on. It was great finally meeting you both.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. We'll sort out who's getting the shirt. Me and Manfred will figure it out.
Oh, right. Yeah, if you guys want to give one away, or you know what, we probably have two to give away depending what size. Oh, sorry. I also meant to say we don't have 2 XLs.
That's fine.
We've got X's. And I will tell you this: they fit small. Like I don't have one because I'm just shy of 6'4", and I can't wear the XS.
Yeah, that's all good. No, man, that's cool. I need the XX too. I'm a tall, big guy as well, so that's fine. But
so
you can have one of my shirts.
It's gonna sit here, and it's gonna look like an odd thing. But we're doing another run. We're doing another run very soon. So we do want to get some double XLs because. Well, I would love to own one myself.
Getting that pandemic weight on.
Yeah. Oh my God. Pandemic. It's gross. But we'll let you, if you want to do the comments, however you want, give a couple away on your listeners or your site or whatever, and then just let me know their names and sizes, and we'll send it out for them. So yeah, we'll get 2 away.
Awesome.
Lucky guys. Well, we appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. It was our first episode of this segment, and I call it a goddamn success, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm calling it a win. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Keep in touch. We'll
Have a good one. I don't know how to turn this off, so I might be here for a while.
I got you.
We got you. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, I don't think and I thought it, that's different. I said what I said and I meant it, or lamented. Words given weight without thought in a person, the way that I talk and the way that I ought to be able to pause and to say that the fault can be placed on my arm, to this playful assault, to disgrace in its arm. Pray for the day they could wait for the calm. You can't control the storm, only weather it, whether it's 5 weeks and 5 days of rain sideways, or scorched earth, search for death or water, left with all the thorns, with the petals